Welcome to Series 10, Restorative Practices Made Simple. Today's topic is Planning for Success, your implementation plan. I'm your host and facilitator, Dr. Gaye Lang, statewide restorative practices practitioner for the whole state of Texas. And we have two guest panelists today from one of our districts. It is Ms. Hudson and Mr. Wilson. Ms. Hudson, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Tijuana Hudson, and I serve as the Director of Student Management and Restorative Practices in Duncanville ISD, which is a suburb of Dallas.
Mr. Wilson, how about you?
Yes, my name is Clifton Wilson, and I serve as the restorative specialist in Duncanville ISD. And I'm a teachable person, and that's what we're here for, to help each other.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So our topic today is actually about implementation plan. Most people get all the training and everything, and they say, oh, Lord, what do I do? How do we implement? Although I talk about it in my training, you've had the training. So I want to know, how did you do it? So how did you implement this, Ms. Hudson? What started it for you?
Well, the journey started first by me attending your trainings, Dr. Lang. After going through those trainings, we looked at how would be the best way to roll things out in Duncanville ISD. And so we started with administrators. We required the administrators, principals, and assistant principals to go through restorative practices training in the summertime. And we also opened it up for instructional staff to be able to have an opportunity to receive that training as well. And then our team has provided ongoing training throughout the school year in person and virtually, so that training can occur district-wide. But we started with the administrators.
And why did you start with the administrators? Why didn't you just start?
You know, buy-in is the big piece of this.
Oh.
And the leader of the campus, really, whatever that leader shines the light on as important is what everybody else on that campus shines the light on as important. And so we had to start with the leaders so that we could get buy-in. And we started with showing them their discipline data from the prior school year. And linking that data to what might be missing in classrooms. And it came up that, you know, relationships are important, and how can we start our focus back on relationships so that we can move students forward.
Beautiful. That was a good way to start, because, you know, if the leaders don't want to do it, no one else is going to do it. Absolutely. And that is really critical. That is a huge buy-in piece. If you got them there, that was kudos to you. Very good. Mr. Wilson, do you want to share anything about the implementation process? How did it go? Did you have a role in it? What did you do?
Of course. So when Ms. Hudson, she went through the training first. And when the role of the restorative specialist became available, one of the things that she wanted us to do was make sure we attend your training as well, Dr. Lang. And we took it, myself and Ms. Hudson, we took it one step further and became statewide trainers with you. And the training was all encompassing, because it not only dealt with the restorative side of it, but also the niches like your early childhood and the fidelity continuum, which helps us gather the data to see how we're doing in our response to our restorative practices.
So you actually are level 2 state trainers. Congratulations to both of you. You went through a lot to get there, and I'm really proud of you. And thank you for mentioning it. And so the fidelity continuum scale was part of your implementation process. How did you use that? What pushed that out for you?
Well, we know that anytime we roll out a big initiative such as this, there's an important piece to make sure that we're doing it with fidelity. And so we sat together to think about, how did we want to be intentional about this? We wanted to focus on the elementary grade levels, and there were certain components that we wanted to make sure that we shined a light on so that we could do it with fidelity. So we had a big focus on respect agreements, a focus on effective statements, and restorative chats. And we started working with our campus response leadership team so that we can start looking at how are us using these tools affecting our discipline data.
So, Mr. Wilson, you talked about early childhood. Right now, there are a lot of challenges, not just in Texas, across the country, with young children. And one of the problems is they are suspending and removing them from class at a rapid rate because they're crying, kicking, scratching, and everything else. But guess what? Psychologists will tell you, At that age, at 3, that's exactly what they do. At that age, at 4, that's exactly what they do. So I know that we have a lot of it happening, but how did that play into the implementation? What went on with that?
Well, it helped us as trainers really position ourselves to work with the teachers and their expectations. A lot of times, exactly like you were saying, they're 3, they're 4. Some of them have not ever been in a school setting before. Most of them haven't. So that structure that you have in a school setting is something brand new to them, outside of them naturally being 3 and 4-year-olds. So it all started with that mindset with our early childhood teachers. Getting them to understand that, hey, I know that on the movies, the kids are able to sit down and you say, raise your hand quietly. Nobody's out of line. Nobody.
You know, this is not the movies though. This is the real deal.
Exactly.
Right here. Ain't nobody sitting down that quiet.
Exactly. So that just kind of helped them put it into perspective. And then we just go from there based on the needs of the child.
Yeah. So all this implementation, fidelity, continuum scale, measuring, looking at the data, getting the buy-in, what results have you had? You did all this for a whole year. You did all this training. You had all these people trained. So what did you get out of that? Did you find out anything? What were your results, Ms. Hudson?
For the 2 campuses that were able to go through this with fidelity, we were astounded by the results that we saw. I will say that district-wide, we had an almost 11% decrease in punitive discipline district-wide. That's phenomenal. But the 2 campuses that actually went through this fidelity continuum scale, there were phenomenal results, and it meant a lot to the campus administrators because they were both new administrators to see the impact that they had as leaders on that campus for shining a light on what was important and how it affected their discipline data.
Nice. And that makes you feel good if you're a new kid in the block and you can show up and show out. Wow, good job there. I'm proud of them already. And what about you, Mr. Wilson? Did you find any information out? Did your data show anything? Did you get any results?
Yeah, we just kind of use that data to kind of show how it actually affects the climate and the culture of the school. When you have students that are able to stay in the classroom and really receive the proper instruction instead of sending them to the office or ISS or suspending them, finding different ways to relate to that child and really touch their inner child. I mean, if a child knows that you actually care, that's the basis of learning, period.
Yeah.
They want to know that you care about them before what you know. So
they're not going to learn from it if they don't like you. They don't like you, they're not going to do anything. I always use this example. We do not suspend students when they come to school and they can't read. We teach them how to read by giving them tutorials. We're giving them different tools. They can't do math. We give them practice. We give them worksheets, but we do nothing for discipline. And we expect them to know how to behave. We have to teach them what we want them to know. They don't come to school ready with that. That's not how it works. If you want them to act a certain way, take the time to teach them on the front end. So on the back end, you don't have 1 million discipline referrals. So I really believe that once people get the concept that discipline is tied closely to academics, I think the bridge would be nicely understood if you could show the correlation. And every time you show a teacher that has relationships with their students, less discipline, they're learning. I can bet cash money on it, and I don't even bet. See what I mean? So any results now that you've gotten all this data, you turned it all in, anything happened for the campuses, Clifton?
Yes, we actually had 2 campuses receive a TA badge for restorative practices.
Wow.
Yes, and that was powerful because on one of the campuses, there was a new leadership team, and that campus is definitely on the up and up, rising. A lot of different turnover, but they were able to use those TA badges coming into this year. They were able to use that as a springboard to other things, to other successes. So, I mean, I'm super excited for them. I'm excited to see what we're going to do in the district this year, and as it pertains to growing the program and really working with these campuses and teachers. And I want to see every campus have a TA badge for restorative at the end of the day, but kudos to those 2 campuses. And
wow, I'm so proud of them. So when I was looking at the data and working with it, I said, wow, that's pretty good. That's good. So you all, I know it's an effort. It's an ongoing thing. It's not going to end. So next year they can be even better and their rating gets even higher. The fact that they made an effort this year was powerful because it takes small steps to get to the end of the road. It doesn't take one giant step. Ms. Hudson, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I wanted to add that just going back to that leader, the leader on the campus. In both of those campuses, the leader prioritized this. Even so, having sometimes during PLC where the team was able to come in and do some training as well. And so when that leader prioritizes this and prioritizes doing it with fidelity, the results, they do not lie. The data does not lie.
No, data don't lie. People might lie, but the data is going to take you right where you need to go. So I am just so grateful. Oh, I'm so proud of you guys. I really am. So now that we talked about this and shared what you've been doing, if you could tell somebody some takeaways, strong message, do it this way or you'll regret it. Or don't forget to do this because I messed this up. Whatever you want to say, what's your takeaway? What's your strong takeaway, Mr. Wilson?
I think one of the biggest takeaway is probably just the fidelity of implementation. Fidelity is key. If you're not intentional about it, it's not going to happen. Point blank, period. So you want to make sure that you're really into it. You're really being as intentional about that process, because if you try to half step with it, it's not going to work. If you try to cut corners with it, you're severely limiting the progress that you could actually be making. So fidelity is key, and also trust the process. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. Literally, some days it's going to be like, oh, you're fighting an uphill battle, but keep pushing. Because like, look at those 2 campuses that received their TA badges. Those were some campuses that had some challenges, but they bought in, they trust the process, and they did it with fidelity. And like you said, I think they're going to grow even further next year. So I'm excited about it.
Me too. I'm so excited for them. And yeah, trusting the process is huge, and fidelity is the next big key. People like to tinker around the edges, cut corners. Oh, well, we don't have to do it today. We'll do it another day. Kids get used to a certain routine. So if you don't establish the routine for restorative in your school, it's not going to happen. It's got to be something you are really intentional about doing. You're absolutely correct on that. Ms. Hudson, what about you?
I think that if I had to offer advice to someone starting out on this journey, my biggest takeaway would be to follow the model. Dr. Lang provides training. She provides intensive training. She provides explicit training, and she's going to spell it out to you step by step. All you have to do is follow the model. And so I'm sharing that from experience, because I went through all those trainings, and there were places where I thought, well, I can do it like this, or I can do it like this. And I found out very quickly that it did not work. And so I had to go back and revamp and start some things a different way, because I did not follow the initial model. So my advice to anyone starting on this journey is, number one, go through all the trainings. And then when you get to that last one, the fidelity continuum scale, make sure that you follow the model.
Beautiful. I like that you were honest about that, because you're not the only one. When people take the training, they think it's a lot of work, and it is, and it's intentional and it's intense. But the reason I give you so much is because I don't want to see you fail at it. So I'm giving you every piece that I could possibly give you, every what if that I think could come up so that you're successful. But because of time, people try to cut something down, cut something back, but you end up having to start all over because it's not going to come out right. It just won't. I really appreciate you all being with me today. And I am just so happy. And for your sakes, being level 2 state trainers puts a lot of responsibility on you to actually do what you say you're going to do, because people be coming to you saying, so how did you do it? And you're telling the story now. So don't think somebody's not going to call and ask. And then you could tell, okay, here's what happened to us. And I think that that's important, to share your stories and your successes. And success may come little bitty at first, a little bitty step here, a little bitty step there, but ultimately you get to the end. But you got to start somewhere. So I really appreciate you all being here. Thank you for listening to Series 10. Stay tuned for Series 11, where we'll be in part 2 of implementation planning.